Good morning, Canada. Good evening, Australia. Melbourne, Adelaide, we're around the world. And I know Robert Wine's going to be here from Ottawa in just a few minutes, always with us. Listen, what a great show we've got. We've got about 15, 20 minutes with our Professor Alan Pierce, and we want to say thank you for all the work you're doing. Sammy, always great to see you. And, of course, right behind me, Shane Tuck, a story that has hit all the newspapers, all the radio stations, and last night I saw a TV program on it, and it's because of people like yourself, Peter Jess, all the AFL community has come together, and we're dealing with something that I know the three of us don't really want to be talking about. We'd rather be talking about the poor, but unfortunately we're talking about situations where this disease that has been diagnosed not only in Shane's brain, but many brains all around the world. It's called CTE, which is chronic traumatic encephalopathy. I know Professor Allen, you'll help me out a little bit with that. I didn't go to school to learn it, but I did want to say, if you don't mind, if I could read this little quick article to get it started. I want to say first, good morning, Professor Alan Pierce. How are you?
Good. Al's just fine.
Oh, God, I got to go from, okay, I got it under together. And, of course, it's Sam to you, Sam. Obviously, today's discussion is a little bit, I don't want to call it controversy anymore. It used to be a lot of controversy over here in North America. I know, Al, you and Dr. Bookland and, of course, Peter Jess and a bunch of guys have stepped up along with Chris Nilan over here to say, hey, guys, enough's enough. We got to start doing something on this, and now it's here. Now it's really in front of us, and there's some great quotes that I saw in a newspaper article with the age that you did, and we'll read those in a few minutes. But I wanted just to read this. What is CTE? It is a degenerative brain disease found in athletes, military veterans, and others with a history of repetitive brain trauma. Most of what we have learned about CTE has come from Dr. Ann McKee, Dr. Robert Cantu out of the Boston University, and of course the Concussion Legacy Foundation, who has revolutionized the understanding of CTE. In CTE, and we'll get a better definition from you, Al, in CTE, a protein called tau forms clumps that slowly spread throughout the brain, killing brain cells. CTE has been seen in people as young as, let me underline this, as young as 17. But symptoms do not generally begin appearing until later years. Obviously, we've heard the report out of Australia here in North America. It's affected us. Al, give us a little bit of understanding. And the reason why we wanted you on today, we're going to have an expert panel next week. We're going to set that time up where we can get yourself back, if you don't mind, Scott Holler. I am going to try, if it's not this early in the morning, I'm going to try and get our friend Chris Nilan with us, possibly Michael Bookland. And of course, I'll consult with you, Alan, to see who else we can get. Give us a little bit of perspective, because we don't want parents running to the phone and saying, my kid's not playing sport anymore.
Well, I guess that's always the outcome of when you do get news like Shane Tuck from yesterday, and then other athletes previously. And one of the things that we've talked about in the last few days is that it's relating to exposure of trauma. So what we want to do is to try and reduce that exposure risk. So while we don't want people, kids and adults for that matter, not playing these sports, particularly for kids, we want to make sure that there's modifications that can reduce this risk, because we don't want the alternative where we don't have kids playing contact sports at all for fear of CTE. And while you said in the intro with Boston really revolutionizing and being pioneers in this area, we're still trying to work out what the actual rate of CTE is, because not everyone has it or gets it, and so we've got to try and understand this a little bit more.
Well, firstly, thanks, Al, for joining us again. Great to see you, especially on this occasion where you can shed some light. And I know Gouche and I were discussing earlier today my daughter Marnie had a concussion recently, and I do believe if it wasn't for being associated with people like Gouche, yourself, Scott Haller, I would be in panic mode right now just because of the lack of information that is around there. My wife and I would be like, that's it, we're going to wrap her in cotton wool, no more sport, no more anything. And whereas I'm very relaxed, and I guess more, speak of the devil, more so because of the information I'm very lucky to have around me and the people. So, a scary time for some parents at the moment.
Al, I want to go to this. I've got a good friend of mine. His name is Robert Wine. I had mentioned that he's probably just got to Tim Hortons, got himself a double-double, and he's sitting in front of his TV or laptop watching this. He said CTE is a disease that's passed by trauma to the brain. Now that's scary. Robert took a very serious car accident. He was actually on a bike and got hit by a truck, and it was left to dead, basically destroyed parts of his body. Obviously did damage to the brain. It was so bad that he had to learn that his left foot wasn't his right foot. That's how bad this was, and they didn't give much chance. So Robert, I don't want to scare you by any means. It's not what this show's about. But the chances of somebody damaging, and I think this is a long shot anyways. If you hurt your brain once, obviously that's pretty severe, or 3 or 4 times, there's no number that says, oh my God, you're going to get this. When CTE came out over here, Al, and it was really widespread, and they had an article in the Toronto Sun. It was in the sports page, and it took a Canadian neurologist to challenge Dr. Robert Cantu's and Dr. Ann McKee's findings. And it actually had, it's how thin you slice the brain after the diagnosis to get CTE. And that was the front page news on a sports page. So they took it to this dramatic end. So all these parents were calling because of stop concussions. Oh my God, my kid's had a brain injury. He's got hurt. He's had a concussion. She's hurt. She's got a concussion. Are they going to die with CTE? Can you temper it a little bit and make sure that we don't have people running again saying, oh my God, I've had one concussion and I'm going to die of CTE?
Yeah, look, I mean, to answer this, I guess, more broadly, anytime there's a new disease, even though CTE is not necessarily a new disease per se, but I guess, for us, it was understanding that, neurodegenerative disease outside of boxing and combat sports was the actual novel aspect to Bennett Omalu's case study on Mike Webster. So for the first time, we were starting to see that this is not just contained to boxing or other combat sports. So just like anything new, people are, I guess, justifiably alarmed and anxious. And if I can parallel that to the 1980s of HIV/AIDS, the amount of misinformation that was getting out there because of anxiety, all sorts of things were flying around in terms of, oh, well, if I, breathe on someone, will I catch AIDS? And if I drink from the same cup, so there's very similar parallels to, oh my God, if I get one concussion, that's it. I'm going to be demented in 20 years. And we now are understanding that, no brain injury is good for the brain, or, if I can rephrase that, no injury is good for the brain. But what we're talking about here is repetitive trauma, and we're talking about tens of thousands of hits. So while there is still, particularly if you're getting a moderate or severe brain injury, the risk of dementia and Alzheimer's does go up compared to not having an injury. But, what we're talking about here with CTE is different in terms of the fact that it's exposure to repeated small hits over many, many years. So, if someone does get a concussion, they've got to be looked after properly. But what, the Boston group in particular have shown is that, that your risk of CTE is increased over every decade of repeated head trauma. So if you're playing American football from the age of 5, your risk of CT is much greater than if you started playing it at 18, for example. And while that may not happen in the American or North American sports system, in Australia, and Sam can probably, attest to this, AFL women's is now coming in, and we're getting a lot of girls who are coming from other sports, starting around 18, 19, 20, 21 or whatever. It's not the same as if the girls were starting at 5 or 6. And so while the sports are now starting to become more popular with very young girls, that's something that we need to be taking concern on. We've got to be really aware of.
Al, I wanted to jump in on that. Sorry, Sam, I know you have a question, but I wanted to jump in on that when you said exposure. I think it's really important to understand that word. If really quickly, where I learned a lot about CTE and with Chris Nowinski and Dr. Ann McKee, of course, was the fact that movie called Concussions with Will Smith. And they came out about the Pittsburgh Steelers, if you recall that story. And they won 3 back-to-back championships. So what it meant was their players had far more exposures because they were playing longer into those years. And so there were more repetitive hits throughout that time. And obviously it's American football. Very similar. The game's very similar to rugby and AFL where, they're tackling and whether you're wearing equipment or not, we know that, or a helmet or not, there's not much protection when it comes to the brain injury. The Steelers had a lot of players go through a tremendous amount of Alzheimer's, dementia, suicides. And it was around that movie that kind of said it was that word exposure, meaning that the more times you damaged your brain or had your brain shaken, the more chances of you. Obviously, it's like a knee injury. I'm sure, Al, you could say too. The more times it gets hit, the more likelihood as you age, you're going to have some traumatic damage there. The only difference is you can replace a knee. You can't replace your brain.
No, that's right. Exactly.
My segue into that question, perfect, Gouche. Shane Tuck, someone like that with such severe symptoms, that's a very rarity, isn't it?
Yeah, it's certainly the exception, given his age. It kind of reminds me of the Junior Sales and the trying to think of some of the other young American footballers, but that certainly most cases are seen in their 50s, 60s, 70s. So this is certainly an exception, and I guess we don't want to. As I said in other interviews, we're not suggesting that because Shane Tuck had CTE I guess post-mortem at 38 years of age, this is not, we're not generalizing this to every footballer. And at the same time, we want to just make sure that footballers are being aware of their brain health and trying to change that culture and trying to understand that concussion or exposure to head impacts is as important as even a pulled hamstring. You get players who are very aware that, oh look, I've slightly pulled my hamstring. If I keep playing, I'm going to rip it. I'm going to tear it. So they've got to have the same attitude towards a head impact and go, oh geez, I should come off. I've just had a bit of a if there's obviously cognizant in knowing that, I've just taken a really big bump, I'm going to come off for a moment and then I hopefully will be able to get back on.
Hey, listen, I want to take it here. He knew something was wrong with his brain. That was in a lot of these articles. I think it headlined one of it. And I think athletes do know. And here's a question that comes from Anthony. Thank you, Anthony, for joining us all the way from Tasmania, Australia. It's great that Gouche Live can travel around the world on this thing called a laptop and StreamYard. But Al, please, this question for coaches, team medics, players, and parents. Are there particular symptoms that may highlight the potential of CTE in a person? I think you also said it very well, with HIV, all of a sudden these rumors spread really quickly. Now here, obviously, what we're dealing with, a pandemic, the same thing happened right at the beginning. And now all of a sudden we're starting to hear the new variant here in Canada. It's actually the new variant, which didn't show much signs of, it was asymptomatic in a nurse and a young boy went to, after they had gone through everything, they went to a nursing home, and it has almost wiped out the nursing home here. That now has spread wildfire, that it's, again, everybody staying at home, which is important. Stay at home, put your mask on. So I'm thinking similar to this. There's no one thing. You can't say, oh, he's got a headache, he's got CTE, or she's got, maybe some neurological issues. Oh, they've got CTE.
Yeah, it's a very long string to bow to pull. But I guess in terms of that question, we've got to be able to just sort of tease apart people who may have post-concussion syndrome, who may have had a concussion, haven't recovered within the expected time frame of 2 to 4 weeks now, not 7 to 10 days, and that's something that we really need to talk about at some other point, separate to CTE, because if people don't recover within the expected time frame, then that is I guess diagnosed as post-concussion syndrome. So that's where you do need to go and see a neurologist, neuropsychologist, someone who is experienced in those in post-concussion syndrome. In terms of CTE, it generally, if it starts to show up in younger people or older people, it's when they've retired. So it's not necessarily something that coaches, parents, teammates will see, because at that time they're probably still playing, and then any sort of signs of CTE will manifest over many years. So generally it's when they've retired. And so I guess one of the things that we need to think about is and look, on the panel discussion next week, someone like Michael Buckland will be really good to talk about this. But we're seeing a whole range of different signs, such as anger, irritability. As they get a little bit older, there'll be more cognitive impairments to be concerned about, memory, concentration, focus. And so it really depends on, the age of the person. And no two people necessarily will show exactly the same things. And that's what makes this a very complicated area.
Absolutely. There's a great comment from Michael Tucker, but before we get to that, do you think that, and I mean this with all respect to the Tuck family, that is there a better person that kind of this is focused around? Because Polly Farmer, Danny Frawley, Sean White, all these guys are that other generation. This current day generation has seen Shane Tuck, with the Richmond Football Club, get better and better. And, he comes from football royalty as far as Michael, his father, Gary Ablett, his uncle. There's no avoiding this. If it was someone less, would we be hearing as much attention, really? And I think it's unavoidable, which now this conversation is going to happen. And for people like Gouche, myself, yourself, we Stop Concussions, other things, I think it's a great time for it to happen. But Michael's just talking about the potential harm of head trauma, raising awareness and treating methods, but don't change the games we all love in an effort to remove the cause. What do you have to say with that one now?
Yeah, look, it's a really really good comment. It is. It's about not ripping the guts out of these sports that we love. It's trying to change the culture and getting players themselves to be aware. What we do know is that if you educate players only, it doesn't necessarily translate into behaviour change. Right. If you just give them education on what a concussion is, what are the signs and symptoms, all this sort of medical model type stuff, what ends up happening is that they actually know how to try and suppress their symptoms or not report their symptoms, because they want to keep playing. So what some of the emerging research coming through in the last sort of couple of years now is having education, but actually an awareness, but also a psychological safe space, so that players can feel comfortable in reporting not only themselves but their teammates if they suspect that their teammate is concussed, because the teammate may not even know that they're concussed. And we've seen plenty of examples down here in Australia with Australian football and rugby, where the player is I'm fine, and they don't even realise that they're completely confused. So it's getting those players to try and be able to change that awareness, so that because contact sports by their nature are going to have incidental impacts to the brain, to the head, obviously, which makes a brain injury. But it's how do we manage that, and what do we do about it? And then the other part of it is to try and modify sports at the junior level to try and reduce that exposure while still teaching them the characteristics of the sport, the techniques, the strategies before they start to get into the full version of the game. But like I said, and Michael has said as well, we're neuroscience. I'm a neuroscientist. Michael's a neuropathologist. We're not going to tell, football players, cricketers, hockey players who are Olympians, world champions, whatever, how to run their sport, or even the administrators, how to run their sport and what to do, as much as I get a little bit ranty when I see 3 athletes trying to talk about the neurology of concussions.
Well, Professor Alan Pierce, we're not going to let you go without a couple more questions. We are really thankful that you've come on, because we're going to set up a panel next week, because there are a lot of great questions, and I think you should be telling us what to do. And I say that in only good respect to you. You know what? We've got to change our mindset. I don't think the games are the issue. It's us watching these gladiators go out on the field, and we applaud that. So I think you're right. It's very important. I want to read a couple of things and one question before we let you go. Here's a quote from you. It's about players taking this injury seriously. I think we have still got this cultural inertia to actually admit that players are concussed. They don't want to let down their teammates. They don't want to let down their coach. They are scared of not being selected. That is a quote from you. And I can only say, from my generation, that is absolutely 100% true. So please, parents, coaches, trainers, take it seriously. A game is not as important as your brain. And the final point here, as we let you go and we get ready for next week, I'm really excited about it, because I think we could be like a day. We could have a seminar on this. So I think we'll give a little bit more time. Yeah. And here's the question from our buddy Aaron. Is there any way we can understand what effect boxing had with Shane Tuck in the later years of his life, other than if it had a scan post? Oh, did he have a scan prior to boxing?
Yeah, and that's a really good question, because that's something that I've challenged Michael on, just to make sure that this finding of CTE is not seen as purely a football issue. Right. However, in saying that, the bulk of Shane's athletic career was playing football, and then in the last sort of 5 or so years, he took up boxing. Now, firstly, the brain doesn't know what sport is activity is impacting it. An impact is an impact. But what I guess the combination of boxing on top of football is not good. And if anything, the boxing may have amplified the spread of the tau in the brain. So, we can never be 100% sure. But, again, if we go back to our understanding of exposure risk, then it's mostly due to his football career, and then the boxing on top of that was probably not helpful at all.
Listen, you've been listening to Gouche Live, Aussie Style with Sam Trapolino. Aaron Kuzak's not with us. A little bit of Wi-Fi issues. He's out at the lake, believe it or not. I would want to say to the whole entire Shane Tuck family, and of course all the people surrounded around him and others, we send out our thoughts and prayers. Alan, thanks for giving us a little bit of understanding. Obviously, next week, we're going to talk a little bit about it more. You are one of the experts I love to listen to, because you break it down in layman's terms, so somebody like Sam and I can really understand it. Though I've been around it for the last 12 years, getting educated, self-taught, listening to people like you, reading some of the great articles you have put out, and many others, having a chance to sit with Chris Nowinski, of course, you know how engaging he is, and of course, Dr. Robert Cantu and Dr. Ann McKee out of the Boston University. And they're not the only ones. There are so many people like yourself, Al, that are really getting involved, and we're thankful for it. As an athlete who's gone through it, and again, not knowing I could have CTE, none of us really know that until our days are done. But thank you for doing this. Thank you for slowing it down. Thank you for allowing us to think about it. And most importantly, it's not just you, Al, but thank all of you guys that are doing this research, men, women, all the medical people that have taken a time out and said, as you said, don't tell us what to do because you maybe don't understand the sport. Yes, you do. Repetitive hits to the head, repetitive hits to the body can create these issues. So we do have to listen to the medical world saying, hey guys, this is what's happening. You've got to change your mindset and not the games. Make sure we take these accidental hits are going to happen. Let's take some of these exposures out from some of the stupid hits that we allow in our game.
Exactly.
Thank you all. We look forward to talking to you next week.
Thanks very much for joining us, Al. Look forward to next week.
And hopefully Aaron will be around too.
Depends on if he's not at cottage.
Yeah, cottage. Hey, happy holiday. It seems every week you guys have got a holiday, so happy holiday.
Happy Australia Day coming up too, Al.
That's right.
Exactly. Yep.
Honestly, it's early in the morning here. I think it's 6. I know it's late for you guys. That Alan Pierce came on so quickly when I gave him the call just to say, clear it up. I know you've had calls. I've taken many calls or emails. I didn't take calls from people saying, oh my gosh, this is crazy. Do I pull my kids out of sport? No. Let's be better prepared. Let's, as we say here in Canada, let's pull our head out of the sand and make sure that we understand. You as a parent, if you want your children to play, understand what this is. That's really, really important. And Aaron's coming up here saying happy Hanukkah. And I just want to say, Aaron, I did have a talk with Sam, Dr. Hook. We are looking at an eye patch. That's all I want to say to you. All right. Listen, we've got a great friend coming up. His name is Greg Savoie. Who is Greg Savoie? That's a mystery. I know he's fucking funny.
You've had to practice that so much, haven't you? Making sure of your
Did I ever?
Because you're so good with names. Semi-Mentera.
Yes. How do you say his last name?
Mantra.
But he's Swedish.
He is.
Well, Greg's going to understand that the Gouche has a lot of I hope it's not anything to do with his brain injury, of course. I do want to make sure, as we take down Shane Tuck's photo behind us, I just want to say to him and his family, understanding the demise in an athlete and seeing this strong, healthy man fall apart. Women are under the same stress. They leave behind families, loved ones, wives, husbands, daughters, sons, parents. It's tragic, yet let's learn from it. And for all that, Shane, thank you for giving us this ability to talk about it and man up on it. Hey, listen, we're coming back in 2 seconds with a very, very interesting man all the way down under, a Montreal Canadian fan, I believe, grew up loving the Alouettes, the Habs, the Expos, wrong picture, and of course, Manic, the Roadrunners. The list goes on, and it's all Montreal based. Why?
I'm not doing anything but having the Penguins up. I'm sorry, my daughter would rip me apart if I didn't have if I had Montreal up. I mean, maybe if it was Caden Primo, but yeah, no, I'm sorry. Now, I'm just going to do a bit of a shout out here. I'm really sorry to use my airtime, but a shout out to Gouche. The last week was probably one of the best weeks I've had in my entire life. I got to hang out with Sammy Mantra and a guy called Joey McDougall, who is the coach of the Adelaide Rush, the ladies hockey team, and plays for the Adelaide Adrenaline. They ran hockey camp through the week and well supported by the kids of Adelaide and South Australia. But Gouche organised some special speakers through the week, including himself. They spoke about concussions. We had Malcolm Sutherland, Safe for Sports, on talking about what Dr. Buckland was just talking about there regarding a better mindset to the way we play the game, not out there to hurt your friends, make the puck the first object, reporting your friends when you think they might be sick, when you think they might be concussed. We had Chris Nilan on, who spoke to our goalies and offered them some video coaching, something that people over here just thought that was just outworldish. And the parents even questioned me to make sure the kids weren't telling fibs later on at night that was true. We had Keith Primo come on, who a favourite of mine. Sammy Mantra grew up following him. Joey McDougall, couldn't believe we had him on there. So we were absolutely spoiled. So a big thank you, one, to JB and everyone at the Ice Arena, Ryan Rintler, who took a lot of photos of the kids, the parents for letting them come. But yeah, Gooch, you organised one hell of a week. Thanks very much, buddy.
It's only Keith Primo. Seriously, don't let it go to his head. Hey, listen, let's not talk too much about Greg because it's going to go to his head. But this kid's good. Like, I've listened to his program often. It's called Pucking Funny, the greatest pucking experience. Pete, we're going to ask. Don't forget, I don't have the disclaimer. I don't have Val on this morning. Greg, what's going on?
I got to keep it light after that.
hey, listen, Greg, right off the bat.
By the way,
yeah,
I was going to say, of all the names that Sam mentioned, Ryan Rintella has been on Pucking Funny. There you go.
And that's not a pucking joke. Hey, listen, Greg.
Yes.
Why Montreal? Like, seriously. I'll tell you what, they played very well again last night. Yeah, thank you. They played very well last night. They are, I would say, probably the hottest team for sure in the North Division. We're going to get into that. But also all of the NHL this year. They are
Vegas.
a team.
Vegas is up there. Vegas is there.
You know what? They're not called Vegas. If you watch our show when we have Scott Taylor talking with Taylor every Saturday, he's calling it the Winnipeg Golden Knights because there's so many Winnipeggers there.
So many Winnipeggers. Anyway, definitely
on that team.
Well, yes, I'm not sure of everybody's where they're from, but yeah. All that to say that the Habs are so far the best team in the Northern Division. Oops.
I would say that. We hear you good. If you're, there's no issues here on our side. Anthony's coming from Tasmania. He's throwing out a jab at you already. That jersey needs a wash. It's just plain dirty.
Scoreboard there.
Yeah. Okay. One for Anthony. All right. Listen, talk to us a little bit about it. You moved down in 2010. You moved down to Australia, Sydney, of course, and being a religious. You say religious Habs fan, but I think, anybody like you, I've listened to your podcast with some of the great people that I know personally, actually. Chris Nilan, Bernie Nicholls, a great interview you had with him. Gilbert, Dionne, obviously just one of those Montreal Canadians. Kelly Hrudey, my favorite, James Duthie and Darren Dreger. Darren Dreger is actually one of my favorites, along with Darren Millard. We got to get him on. Good Winnipegger. Why did you start a hockey podcast in a country at that time that still was kind of wavering if they were, we call it an ice hockey nation?
Yeah. I have to admit that the word ice in front of it, there was only one hockey. Ice. Ooh, got the H going there. The French Canadian me. Ice is the surface it's played on. But anyway, like Gouche said, yes, I grew up in Montreal. So what you said earlier about the Alouettes, the Manic, the Concordes, and I'm going way back there with those teams. The Expos were actually my first love growing up. I was more of a baseball fan than a hockey fan, but in Montreal, you just can't get around the Habs. And when I moved here in 2010, I continued following the NHL, obviously my Habs more specifically. And I was listening to podcasts, hockey podcasts, general podcasts, just about entertainment, comedy. I love comedy, hence the name, Pucking Funny. And I was like, oh, this podcasting stuff doesn't seem out of reach for someone like me. I got to get a microphone, get a computer, buy a couple of subscriptions to put it out there, and I'll talk about hockey. And it started with, I talked with some local fans. There's more fans of ice hockey in Sydney and in Australia than people think.
Absolutely.
There are a lot.
Absolutely.
There are. I myself was shocked when I started. Oh, I've got a podcast. Do you want anybody? Oh yeah, can I go on? What?
Yeah, agreed. Yeah. I liken it to my wife and I looked at a new car. We'd never looked at that type of car, and then all of a sudden, that's all you notice when you drive around that type of car. When we discovered ice hockey, all of a sudden you see the Bruins shirt, you see the Penguin shirt, you see the Habs shirt. All of a sudden you start to notice because you're looking. So I totally agree. Now, I'm going to get in early because I know Gouche is going to ask you about some others. Now, Chuck Basti talks about his love of his life and whoever he got to skate with on or Skating with the Stars. You interviewed your crush, Manon. I'm not even going to try and say
my crush. I knew that would come up.
You please explain and tell me what that's like.
Yes. Oh, well, that part, yeah. Okay, so she was from way back in 92, 93 when she played with Tampa there. And I was living in Quebec. She was the big deal, and she was and still is a very good-looking woman. I'll keep it to that.
Absolutely.
And I was a guest on another podcast, which is called, I'm going to forget the name of it now. Doesn't matter. It's two women who have the hockey podcast. They had me on, and their final question to every guest is, who's your hockey crush male and hockey crush female? So hockey crush female, I had no problem. I said, it's Manon. And if you need to know, my male hockey crush is Jaromir Jagr. Anyway, from there,
that's a really good Canadian. That's a Canadian player.
Right. So from there, I kind of ran with Manon as my crush. And as Gouche knows, and Sam, you might know, last December, I put out a series of interviews with women in hockey.
Yes.
And for that series, I so wanted to get, not because she's my crush. That's just a bonus, of course. And because I would say she's probably the most well-known female hockey player of her generation.
Wow.
Maybe because she played pro, because she played with the Lightning. Not to take anything to Haley Wickenheiser, Cami Granato, and all of them.
No, absolutely.
But because Manon played in Tampa, it was such a big deal back then, as it should have been, and it still is. I wanted to get her on, and I did get her on. And Sam, to your question, I'm kind of beating around the bush about what is it like to interview your crush? It is amazing. And in fact, that episode, if you've listened to it, I had a what's her name? The goalie out in Perth, Sasha King.
Yeah.
Sasha King is 17 or 18. I had her on the show early last year, like before the pandemic and whatever, just one of the, quote, local Australians that play. And when I interviewed her, she went on about, I read Manon Rhéaume's book from back then. She's my hero, this and that. I said, okay. When I booked Manon, I sent a message to Sasha. Sasha, do you want to speak with Manon? You're on the show. So Sasha King was in on the show with Manon.
So you're making other people's dreams come true. Yeah.
Hey, listen, I want to just throw out some other names. Of course, Sammy Joe Small, Aaron Witten, Kim Martin, great players. Sammy Joe Small, one of my favorites. She's such a wonderful, just put out a book. And you've had writers like Todd Denault, Bob Duff, Kevin Allen. You've done the whole spectrum. You've done hockey journalists. You've done hockey people that have obviously written not only books, but that are on different platforms for the women's game, which is tremendous. Thank you for doing that, Greg, because it's such a needed information, bringing it out to Australia. Listen, there's some comments on the side I want to get to. Aaron, True and Blue, stand to your pens.
Okay.
Ashley Glover. I want to get Ashley.
Ashley has been on Pucking Funny. There you go. and you should get him on, Gouche. Yes.
And that's not a pucking joke.
It's not.
I wish we had Val here because he would put that
You
up.
really wanted that name. You want that name now.
I do actually.
Gouche will go fucking live.
I can't. It's early in the morning, and I'm really concerned of my peas. All right, let's continue on here. Here's a good one. I guess I'm being slapped. We've not been wavering with hockey since October 12th, 1904. But these summer sports just get in the way. I would say get in the way and get far too much funding. I hear a little bit of jealousy there. What's going on?
Yes.
Another Hobart boy. Is Ashley from Hobart?
It's Hobart. Ashley is.
He's great with names.
Ashley is. When I spoke with Ashley, he was from Hobart. Yes.
Hobart.
Like Simpson. Hobart.
Okay, listen. So, you know,
we won't talk about the hose, but did I say that?
They're all in Montreal. Hey, listen. I have got Chez Paris.
Chez Paris, yes. We all know about Chez Paris. Do we? Sam, do you know about Chez Paris?
No, this is a
funny
clean show.
Funny story about Chez Paris. I won't go any further. Gouche, did you know that when Wayne Gretzky played, and whenever he played in Montreal, that was his favorite establishment? Wayne Gretzky's favorite establishment.
Even though I didn't play in the National Hockey League, that was my favorite establishment. Not true. Okay. Listen, Hobart is one of those cities that's on my bucket list. I tell everybody this all the time. Ashley, if you're still down there, I know Anthony is. My word is this. I will be in Hobart as soon as we get out of this crazy.
Sure you will.
I will.
It's an A, Hobart. That's the one A that Australians pronounce properly, Hobart.
I know, it's crazy. I can't figure all the, hey, mate. Hey, matey. Hey, mate. Hey, mate. Hey, listen, let's get into, obviously, you follow very closely. You follow hockey very closely. Ice hockey, as you guys would say over in that crazy country. Yes. But hockey, we're speaking between two hockey, what do we call ourselves?
No,
I'm not sure.
Dynasties.
I would say a legend.
Experts.
And we talked about Man Crush, and I know that Sam will interview his Man Crush one day. I will let you do that, Sam.
Just tell me it's Sidney Crosby. Tell me it's Sidney Crosby.
He thinks it's him. He thinks it's him.
You.
I'll interview you after you get to play cricket with me. After I get to bowl you, then I'll interview you.
Cricket. Sam, I have to admit that since I've moved here, I watch NRL. I've been to AFL. Cricket, I still don't get. I'm sorry.
There you go.
I don't get it. I don't. And I'm a baseball guy. I know the throwing and the hitting, I get that, but why is he there for 45 minutes?
Bowling and hitting. Bowling.
You're
bowling.
Yes.
Listen, I've got a question for you.
Yes. Oh, here it comes.
You're watching a lot of hockey. First beer's on. Okay, thanks, Ashley. Ashley, we're getting you on the show. Listen, I want to ask you a question. You watch it very closely. Yesterday, for my Winnipeg Jets, we had a big trade. And I was
shocked. I was shocked.
I want to hear your opinion all the way down under, a Habs fan. And there's a lot of Habs fan in Winnipeg, so be careful. Tell us what your thoughts are on it.
I'm pretty far from Winnipeg. I don't have to be careful. It's okay. Okay. Pierre-Luc Dubois wanted out of Columbus. That was fairly obvious. He made it kind of obvious. John Tortorella had enough of him. Therefore, whoever was going to transact with them had the big end of the stick, as I say, because a lot of people in Montreal, because Pierre-Luc Dubois is francophone, we've needed a number one center, although that might be done now with Nick Suzuki. But a lot of people in Montreal were wondering if Montreal would go after him. And people were saying, oh, should we give up Romanoff or Suzuki, Kotkaniemi? I'm like, don't, no. As good or great as Pierre-Luc Dubois is, first of all, I didn't want to change the dynamic in Montreal. But they landed Patrick Laney. I am shocked. I'm not sure what Winnipeg, if there's an issue with Laney in Winnipeg, but I thought that other GMs would be offering a lot less for Dubois because he was wanting out. I thought that Kekalainen, the GM in Columbus, was sort of under the pump. If I was the GM, for instance, in Montreal, I would have said, okay, maybe Cole Caulfield, a couple of picks, see where that goes. They probably would have taken it, but I would not have offered as much as Patrick Laine. That was a total surprise to me.
So let me just bring you up to speed. Laine has been on the block for a little bit because he's not happy. He wasn't fitting in. He thought he wasn't getting enough ice time with Maurice. So he really made it vocal that he wasn't happy. So things started to change last year. And of course, they tried to get Stastny. I was going to say Peter. But obviously, they went out after him and got him. Paul Stastny, and it was really important for them to show Laine that they were going to do whatever they could, and it still didn't work. He came this year, played incredible in his first game. Of course, even got in a little tussle with our buddy Tkachuk out of Calgary, and it seemed that the marriage was better. He gets hurt, he's out of the lineup, and then of course with our friend Torts. How's
that going to work?
I know I'm not really concerned about Dubois and obviously the throw-in of Roslovic. I think the concern is going to be for obviously Laine. Can he play under Torts? Because Torts wants you to back check. Laine's not the greatest back checker. I'm really concerned that made in heaven marriage is going to go south really quickly. But people don't realize Laine wants $12 million at the end of this year. He becomes a free agent. Winnipeg knew they're not going to be able to ante that kind of money up. Dubois is only $5 million per season for the next couple of years. Fits in the cap really nicely, gives Winnipeg some money to fool around. Winnipeg looks like a really good team. So behind the scenes, it's maybe not as desperate as a lot of Winnipeg fans. Oh my God, the sky's fallen in. We've lost this great player. And I love Patrick Laine. I think Winnipeg's going to look back in 5 years and say, oh my God, we had that guy. But for the immediate, it was the best move.
He will say that. Now, as you said, because both of them have contracts, Laine coming to expiry this year, historically, Columbus have not signed free agents or signed big contracts. That's why Panarin's not there anymore, Bobrovsky. So maybe they've got something else, in the works to ship him somewhere else before the end of the season. And something that crossed my mind is maybe Winnipeg has something in the works for Dubois to go somewhere else.
Ooh, I would say that, listen, that's a 1-2 punch up the gut, up the middle. I don't think you touch that now. He's going to Stastny has already agreed to go on the wing, which is a big move. So you've got up the center, you've got two really fun, Scheifele and Dubois, not a bad situation. Hey, listen, there's a couple of really good comments. Ashley, I was going to go to that and we'll bring it up. Ashley knows his stuff. Like this kid's.
Oh, yes, he does. Yes, he does.
Even though you're from Hobart, you really know your ice hockey. All right, listen, the reason why they're saying, Anthony's telling us, we have to say ice hockey over here because field hockey is more well-known here, and the media calls it hockey. Well, I think it's That's because true. You guys just don't want to be associated with wearing skirts. Greg, are you broadcasting from inside a Zamboni?
Yes, Aaron, I am. Yes.
Greg,
if you look closer, you'll find David Ayers.
Yeah. You know what's funny about this though is, and I know where this reference point's coming from. Greg, you'll get a chuckle out of this. We do the Ice Hockey Classic and we bring these, and we're going to get you heavily involved in 2021 once we get our chance to get over there. We want you to be a big part of it. We had to ship over some Zambonis, and I shipped one. It went to Perth first, and then it was actually shipped directly to Perth. It was going to be used, and then it was going to be taken to Adelaide. And I got a call from the shipper in Perth saying, listen, they sent an email to my forwarder saying, hey, does the Zamboni have air conditioning? And so my guy on the other side, this is a true story, and Aaron can testify this. So it says, does it have air conditioning? And my guy sends me the email right away and saying, Gouche, what does this mean? Why would he be asking that? And I said, I'm not 100% sure. So he writes back to him and he says, I'm sorry, I don't get the question. Why are you asking that? Then the gentleman says, well, if we're driving it through wherever, it has to have air conditioning for the driver because it's a long distance. And so he sends me this note, and I said to him, listen, just write him back, Bob, and say, no, it doesn't have air conditioning, but you can roll the windows down. This guy actually thought we had to drive the Zamboni from Perth to Adelaide. Number one, do you know how long that would take? Number two, I don't think it would take the heat that it would have done through it. So there's a little bit of fun there. All right, here's another one. I love these comments. Provided Laney is healthy, Torts absolutely has the best deal here as a coach. Now listen, being a little bit understanding of coaching and mentality and the way Torts does it, I just think this is not a good trade. I listen, for both parties, it was funny. I don't know if you – sorry?
I was going to say, I see it a good trade in the sense that they both wanted it out of where they were. So two problem guys just swap you.
Yeah, but take it as this then. And it was funny. I don't know if you've ever listened to Liney talk, but he's got a sense of humor. Yes. So he's on a radio interview yesterday or TV interview, and the lady says, "Well, you're coming, and we're going to need your offense." And the Columbus Blue Jackets were already up against Tampa Bay 3-0, and he said, "You guys have just scored 3. I don't think you need me." Right? So it was kind of funny. But with Torts, he's very demanding on his players. He plays a lot of mind games. And is this a trade that may cost Torts his job? And I'm saying that because he's got a lot to prove in Columbus. He's had issues. He's come out vocally and has kind of embarrassed Dubois, in my opinion. I think having it go in the press is very difficult. I thought Dubois yesterday on all the media interviews was absolutely fantastic, as was Liney. But I know as a player, the embarrassment that he created around Dubois' last game, I would be seething inside. And I would like to really say what I thought, but he was a professional and didn't. So I think that's really important to understand. Hey, Sammy Monterey. Sorry, a bit late to the party, Sam. Have you already mentioned your improvements on hockey skills? Checking skills still needs a bit of work.
At least we can pronounce his name right. Just on the Tortorella thing, I think that he's a smart man. He wouldn't be taking the trade unless he's already had that conversation and has some kind of a plan of attack on how he's going to mention Line, especially with his reputation of possibly being a bit lazy too.
Torts or Laney?
No, more the player. And yes, just for your sake, Greg, during the week, I after 2.5 years of practice, I learned to stop on skates. Yes, can do it. Can stop now. Thank you very much.
That's.
How are the boards? Are the boards still standing?
I did take out a 12-year-old Diamond Cross. I'm very, very sorry. Smoked him. But, yeah, he's about 40 kilos bringing wet.
Be really proud of him. Hey, Greg, let's get back to you.
Yep. I was just going to say, when I go skating at Liverpool Rink, people don't stop.
I put the Glenfield station. I was the safety manager on the Glenfields railway upgrade and everything down there. I was the manager.
Okay, let's get back to asking. Here's a really good one from Anthony. Torts is a taskmaster. Reminds me of my dad when coaching. Liney is a free agent shortly, so Liney will be looking to work well for a short stint before getting big bucks. I know you follow it really well. I know Montreal, we've had a lot of controversies over the years of, the big stars and we, I'm a big Montreal Canadian fan. I'm a hockey fan first, as I know you are too. Obviously you bleed red, blue, and white. I'm also in those same colors. It's just in the middle of our country. But I love every team. Like I eat, sleep, and drink ice hockey.
I don't.
I know you don't. but I do.
I don't like the Flyers.
That's understandable. Nobody does except Chuck Basti. Tell us about, obviously, you being over there and watching all of this play itself out. Do you have any? I'm sure you have the NHL Network package where you can see all the games. Or yeah, how many games do you? I don't know how it works there. Is it like ours? Like last night, there were 8 games. I watched every single one of them.
I didn't watch every single one. I watched Montreal, and that came on. The live game in the Montreal live game, Montreal against who were we playing? Out west, Vancouver. It was at 11 a.m. Sunday morning here. It started, and I watched that. And Edmondson gave Myers what he deserved.
Yes.
And, to answer your question, I watched pretty much every Montreal game. This year, I've caught myself. I'm almost following only the Canadian division for some reason.
Oh, it's fantastic.
It is great. If they can keep this, if they can, I don't see why they couldn't. But well, Bill Daly has come out, Greg, and said they are not planning to go forward with it. However, that could change, of course, as we go along. But are you? Do you really do you think that this could survive? People would hang in on this. Obviously, the way Bill Daly said it is, it's a North American league, which it is, and that's true, and that's fine. In Canada is it going to serve? Of course, it's because it's Canada. You could have ball hockey in August in Moose Jaw. People are going to watch. It's Canada, all right.
Is there still snow in Moose Jaw at that time?
Probably. Let's not kid ourselves. Now,
Greg, how about a question back about your podcast? Who's on the bucket list for you coming up?
Nathan Walker. Nathan Walker. That's a no-brainer. Nathan Walker.
I know someone that could organize that, I reckon.
Let's get it done.
We'll get that done.
Because I've been trying. I know he went to Blues camp. I know they waived him. Do you know what his status is?
Hang on.
He just
I
goes
can
down
check
to
the fantasy camp. Hang on.
Yeah. Well, just okay, Google. No, he's down. Obviously, going with the AIHL. I'm actually planning to talk to him this week, so I will organize that, Greg. All right. He's a big fan of ours for the Ice Hockey Classic. We've just renamed the cup the Walker Cup, so he's going to be a big part of that as we go forward. Well deserved, obviously, with all the recognition he's got. We need to make sure that he's a part of it. And listen, I wanted to go back quickly. I know we're jumping around a little bit, but we've got great comments coming on the side here. We want to go back to, of course, the topic of the day, Liney, and it's your friend Ashley Glover. Also, the reason why Dubois makes more sense in Winnipeg than Liney. Scheifele and Connor are very bad defensively. Hey, listen, the way Connor's scoring goals, the way Scheifele's scoring, who cares? Get it? That's why they got Heller back there. Eller's isn't too far behind either. Goals have been never been a problem in Winnipeg. They aren't tough to play against. Man, Ashley, you're killing my team here. Dubois makes them stronger down the middle. I will agree with that. But here's the one that, Ashley knows his stuff. Also a factor, Dubois' father.
I was wondering about that.
Manitoba Moose.
Okay, because I knew that the Manitoba Moose head coach is a francophone and I was wondering if there was a relationship there with Dubois.
So his father is an assistant coach there. So I think that also had some play in it. And I could see Dubois staying long. I think he's a long-termer. Okay.
I can see Dubois staying, not Liney. Well, that would shock me if he stayed in Columbus.
And Greg, Walker was reassigned to the AHL San Antonio on Thursday.
But they're not playing, are they? The AHL?
No. They're the AHL. The AHL. There's so many letters and all these different. The American Hockey League is having trouble right at this particular one. Finance is the big thing. The NHL is maybe not throwing the money at them right at this particular moment. So there's really a lot of confusion. Up to 3 to 4 teams have said they're not going to play the season. So there's a lot of confusion right now around it. But they are talking mid-February to start the league up. So stay tuned. We don't know all the facts, but we certainly will get it. Listen, let's go back to Pucking Funny podcast. How'd you get the name? I know you said you're a comedian, obviously, because you like the Montreal Canadiens. And then tell us a little bit. I'm going to tell you a quick story how much I love the Montreal Canadiens. And you would love this, Greg, and you can maybe explain to people what this is like on terms of an AFL player, a rugby player. I was doing an event. Ron Ellis had organized. We were going across Canada. He'd organized me to get some numbers signed by a gentleman named Yvon Cornway. So I was in Montreal, corner, the Roadrunner, and I was in there, had the numbers, had 2 interns in the back with my wife in the car. We drive up to his house. I knock on the door. He answers the door. Mr. Goulet, yes, listen, Yvon, I've got these numbers. Yes, I know. Come on in. I can't. I've got my wife and 2 interns that were at the event. No, you bring them in. So we come in. We sit around his dinner table. You want a coffee? You want a sandwich? He's serving us. Yvon Cornway is serving us. He says, come on downstairs. We go downstairs, and all of his, I think they're 10. I didn't count them all, but 10 mini Stanley Cups, that you're presented downstairs. And he's got a sauna, and he's got a TV in the sauna. And this is where I watch my games. Fantastic. He says, come here. Opens up the door. He's got a golfing range. Like what? It's not. It just hits into a net. But he's taken one room in his basement, and it's a driving room. So we go back upstairs. We have another coffee, and I say, we have to go. We got to drive back from Montreal.
When a hockey player says coffee, yeah, wink, wink. We know.
No, it was coffee. It was 10 o'clock in the morning. It was red, but it was still coffee. So at the end of it, we get in the car. And then at the end, he says, hey, kids, I'd love to sign something. So he got his pen out and he signed a bunch of pictures to us. And it was unbelievable. We get in the car. And one of the kids said, hey, who was that guy? He was 19. We got served coffee by Yvon Cornway. So tell us how you fell in love with him. I'm not only living there. Tell us a little bit about your history with the Montreal Canadiens. I'd love to hear it.
Okay. Well, I grew up in Montreal. I was born in, I won't say the year, but anyway, I was alive when they won the 4 cups in a row in the 70s, but I was very young. So, and you kind of took it for granted. Oh, they're going to win. Of course, they're going to. They always win, blah, blah, blah. You don't. And then the 80s, I hit my preteens and my teens. We didn't win. We had the crappy team there in the early 80s. Then 86 came along. This rookie little goalie who didn't look very big or very impressive called Roy, Patrick. He was lights out. His first, anybody who knows their history, 86, he was a rookie, won the Conn Smythe, won the Stanley Cup on an improbable, and I've said it before on Pucking Funny, a team that should not have won the Stanley Cup. By that, I mean there were other teams better than the Montreal Canadiens in 86. Patrick went on to take him to the finals in 89. We lost to Calgary. And then 93. The 1993 Stanley Cup playoffs, I'm biased because it's my home team, but remains the best goaltending performance I have ever seen in the playoffs. The second one would be 2000, was it 7, Giguère, when he won the Conn Smythe, but lost the cup? Anyway, that would be the second one. But I would say Patrick Roy is the one that turned me on to, holy jeez. They were often underdogs. They'd won all these cups in the past, and there was the history, and that all often comes back to haunt us Habs fans. But Patrick was that guy that always did it. And I have to admit that December 3rd or 4th, 95, the infamous 11-1 game against Detroit.
Against the Kings. Yeah.
Why are you smiling? Why are you smiling?
Because
I'm pouring out my heart.
That trade started one of the best rivalries in hockey, one of the best eras of hockey between the Red Wings and the Avs. Sorry.
Now remember this, Sam, though. if that situation, Patrick Roy with Mario Tremblay and Patrick wanted out and Dad was distraught and broke the camel's back, if that had happened a year prior, never would Patrick have been on the Avalanche. Why is that? They were still the Nordiques.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
Never would Montreal have traded to Quebec.
Yeah.
Even under those circumstances, no. Therefore, it happened at a perfect time for Colorado. And you know what? I love I hated the trade and whatever, but I always felt for the Nordiques. As a Habs fan, you don't like the Nordiques, but they had those really lean years.
Unbelievable. Yes.
It got him Joe Sakic, Owen Nolan.
Michel Goulet.
Well, that's way before. Michel Goulet, Peter Stastny, Réal Cloutier.
Yeah, Cloutier.
Here's one for you, Gouche. If you want to go back then. Manon Rhéaume, my crush.
Yes.
Grew up in the Quebec City area. Okay.
Yes.
She was born in 73, so you know about the era. Which goalie from the 80s on the Nordiques do you think she fancied her game like?
Ooh, I'm not a historian on goaltenders, so tell us.
Daniel Bouchard. Anyway.
No. Have you interviewed Dan?
No.
Oh my God!
Should I?
What an interview! Oh my God! What an
There's another one.
Okay, get him and Walker. There you go.
What I want you to do, Greg, is I want you to put a list together of guys that you, men and women, who you'd like to see. I can't promise them all, but obviously I make calls for our show.
Okay.
Send me a list. I'll try.
Can you get me Patrick?
Okay, listen. I'm in trouble with
the
Patrick.
fucking floor.
Hey, Scott Parker might be able to get Patrick for us. You never know. The sheriff can pull some strings for me.
The sheriff I've been wanting to get. I've had a few enforcers. You mentioned Island. I've had some. I love the enforcers.
We can't even get him on our show, for God's sake.
Yeah, but you let me organize it rather than you, and it'll happen.
Well,
I'm a Frenchie. He might talk to me. I don't know.
He hasn't returned one of my emails yet. So, and his wife said to me, "I love her. I don't know her that well. They're in a meeting. They'll call you in an hour." That was 3 weeks ago.
Yeah,
hey, listen, the reason why I don't think I can get you Patrick is because I still call him Patrick Roy. Hey, Patrick Roy guy.
But I will send you a list. But part of my if you really want and I don't know how many. Mario, Wayne.
No.
He wasn't. No, okay. I tried.
Listen, they're A-listers. Gouche is a CD lister. That's no disrespect to my guys and girls. Hey, listen, Ashley's coming up 0607 or 0203. You know the code. Hey, Jean-Sebastian.
No. The 02 when he that's the one where he won the Conn Smythe, but they lost in 7 to the Devils in the finals.
Yeah, that was insane. I remember that.
That semifinal, or they call it conference final. The conference final was Anaheim against Minnesota Wild. It went 5. Anaheim won in 5. So they won 4 out of 5. 3 of the 4 games Anaheim won were shutouts. That's fucked.
It was crazy. Oh, that's pucked. I wish I had. It's too bad. It's too bad we don't have our producer tonight. He'd have that disclaimer going on. Hey, listen. Here's a good one. Patrick Waugh.
Wow. Remember Boston used to say that. Boston used to wah him all the time.
Yeah.
But Patrick would be the guy on my favorite Montreal Canadian of all time that I've seen play. Because I won't go Rocket Richard and Jean Béliveau. That's that's
a little too late. Yeah.
And I didn't see enough of Guy Lafleur, so I wouldn't put him. But Patrick.
Yeah. Yep. Patrick, when him and Shanahan were airborne meeting in ice when he was coming to Claude Lemieux's rescue. Oh my God, that was awesome.
I have to say, Sam, in the 2 years that Detroit and Colorado met, 1 year one fought Osgood, and the second year he fought Vernon, or vice versa.
Other way around. Yep.
Yeah, Vernon then Osgood.
Vernon got that left in, which just changed it. But Wah had him just over top rights. I mean, not that I like that kind of stuff. All not about that.
Yes, especially running Stop concussions. Hey, listen, talk to us a little bit about your favorite interview. Who's somebody you said, wow, I can't believe I just did that, outside of your crush?
Okay, well, there's one that I'm like, wow, this person's, well, I guess there's a couple. Chris Nilan. I grew up in an island, for those who don't know, who aren't old like me. He was the enforcer on the Canadiens in the 80s. He won the Cup in 86. He was on that team that Patrick was the rookie on. He was the enforcer. He was drafted. That's when they had like 15 rounds of draft. Next to last, 232nd, something ridiculous. And he's a Boston boy. And he wanted to play for the Bruins. But he was drafted by Montreal. And he said, okay, I'm drafted. I'll just play for Montreal. It's not where I'd like to play, but I played. And he was that typical enforcer. Fourth line, worked hard. And that Chris Nilan, who won the Cup on the Habs and so on, agreed to give me a half hour, 40 minutes. That was an absolute delight. That was insane. Another one who's not a hockey player, but it has to do with ice and has a story about him and Eric Lindros that we couldn't get into, but we don't have to, is figure skater Elvis Stojko. You might have heard the name. Elvis Stojko won Olympic silver medals for Canada in figure skating. He's one of the most well-known Canadian in Canada. Elvis Stojko is like, yeah, okay, we like royalty, athletic royalty.
Yep.
And he gave me an hour and a half, and we spoke figure skating, hockey, what he's into now. He's more into acting. The fact that somebody of that, in my mind, level would go on a podcast that's everybody. That's it all.
I thought Gouche was coughing.
No, that's the security guard. Somebody's trying to steal the Zamboni.
The one interview that's somebody I did not know much about, but I learned more and has become, he's in Canada, so an online friend, and not, I don't think I'll ever necessarily meet him. Graham Boner. Do you know Graham, Gouche?
Yes.
I spoke with Graham. What the nicest guy ever. He was drafted by Montreal, had an incredible junior year, scored 66 goals as a junior. The following year, went to camp with Montreal, bad ankle injury, never played a game in the big leagues. And that led to less good things, but he's got over that, and now he's a social worker, a counselor. Great story, and what a guy! What a guy, Graham Bonner. That was one of those I didn't really know about him, but because he was hockey, I got him on and became a friend. Graham is incredible. Yes, Anthony, Last Gladiators by Nilan.
Yep.
Great movie. That I would say watch that.
I had the chance, obviously, with Senator Konopka to go to the launch of that. Man, impactful. That was something to watch, let me tell you. Hey, listen, please.
I was going to say, if you're into sports movies, hockey movies, documentaries, and real life, it's real life, and it gets intense. It does.
It gives you a really good perspective of what they go through, right?
Yeah. Knuckles has his own podcast, doesn't he, Greg, as well?
I don't think he has a podcast. Last I knew, he was on Montreal radio. He does on TSN 690. He had a midday show on the radio. He might have his podcast now. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I wanted to update you. Nathan Walker has been shipped to Utica. He's playing for the Utica Comets. If that actually takes place at the AIHL, that's the affiliate team for the St. Louis Blues. We hope that he gets back into the lineup. Listen, for the Montreal Canadiens, golly, we forgot to even mention. Great goal last night, Corey Perry.
Corey Perry. Absolutely.
What a great goal, too.
Yeah, it was. Did you see the hands? I don't know who the defenseman is. He went around. I'm like, and I was watching the broadcast in French, just because I like watching it in French. And it said the funniest line. They went, "Oh, he's found the founder of youth with a move like that."
And you know what? He could be one of those pickups. You didn't really like. Some people said, "Hey, it was a good move." Then they put him on the taxi squad. They bring him up, boom, scores and an important goal.
Do you remember last year, Kovalchuk? Same thing.
Unbelievable. Yeah, I wish he would have stayed there. I think he could have had a longer career in Montreal than moving around. Anytime you start moving around at that age, if you can stay, try and stay, man.
Greg, I've recently started in a fantasy league for hockey. My hockey knowledge is not great, so every time a pick was done, I'm sitting there Googling it, and I had Gouche helping me out. And while he was
4 in the morning.
Through 4 in the morning, he's helping me out. So all of a sudden he'd go to sleep, and I'm having to make a pick on my own. I actually picked up Corey Perry, and I got scolded for it when he woke up. But he said, "All right, he won't be a bad bench player." So,
but is that one of those pools where you have to have so many defensemen, so many forwards, and I don't like those.
Yeah. So next time you're going to, I'll tell you what you do. You get Greg and Ashley together, buddy, next year, so that you don't.
Next time you do a hockey pool, get Ashley to do the light. I don't. Compared to Ashley,
you're my man. Cooper Peacock, you're done. Sorry.
All right.
I'll go with I know the history. Like, if you have the number one pick historically, okay. And it's one of those you got defensemen and forwards. Take Bobby Orr. Highest scoring defenseman ever. You got 100 points.
Hang on, Sam. I don't know if Greg knows it. He's retired. He's not playing anymore.
Oh, well, yes.
Breaking news. Oh, you're so far down under. I guess you haven't got the news yet. Hey, you know what? Gretzky's been traded too. Hey, listen, Greg, talk to us a little bit about the show now. What's your aspirations? Like, obviously, we've been doing this Gouche Live because we were bored. And I'm not really an analytical guy. I don't know. You could ask me about a player and I'd really struggle to come up with his stats. We've got young guys like Stephen Ellis that comes on, like he just wheels it. Like it's ridiculous how I'm going to get you to interview. Have you heard the name Stephen Ellis? He's with the Hockey News. You listen, Greg, if you want to impress all of your listeners on numbers of guys today, this kid is Sammy? Unbelievable.
There's only one more, Liam McGuire as well.
Liam's been on.
How great is Liam?
Oh, he's great. I won't say he's not up on it. He's up on the current stuff, but the history. Like on the show, he said, "Greg, ask me any hockey question from when, like in 1942 on October 5th at 1942 of the third period, who scored?" What?
Yeah.
No, that's not impressive. It's when he tells you. No, it's when he tells you who was serving popcorn on aisle 9, and that's really where you start really getting it.
I did get him on. I don't know if you Gouche would know about you know about the Richard riot, the Rocket Richard riot. Yeah, Rocket Richard had been suspended. Clarence Campbell, the then president of the league, they didn't have a commissioner, was at the Montreal Forum, and the Montreal people started throwing smoke bombs and whatever, so they had to cancel the game.
That was crazy.
And somebody ushered President Campbell out, and there's a fan, or seemingly a Montreal fan, that went in to try and punch Clarence Campbell, but police interfered. My question to Liam was, who is that person who tried to punch Clarence Campbell? And he didn't know.
You got him.
Apparently it's not.
He doesn't know.
I don't know either.
Ashley, Steve is my buddy Greg. I'll hook you up. We will hook him up. Absolutely, Ashley. Thank you. And of course, Steve has been on your show. Hey, how come I haven't been on your podcast yet, Ashley? Ashley, we're going to change podcast again.
You were asking about Pucking Funny and what my ambitions are.
Yes, that's what I want to hear.
Pucking Funny, the name you asked, it literally came out of I'm like, okay, I want to do a podcast. It's going to be about hockey. How do you do a podcast? Blah, blah, blah. Oh, I got to come up with a name, a title. The Puck I don't want to put the word ice because ice hockey kind of bothers me. I don't want to make it too Habs specific, Habs centric, because I wanted to about the game and not just the NHL. In fact, initially it was to be more AIHL or Aussie stuff, but I just came with pucking puck something puck. Can you sort of make a pun or a funny type pucking funny? That's pucking funny. That is a pucking funny title. There you go, pucking funny. And as for, I am still amazed. Look, I don't get as many listeners as I'd like to. I'm still not quite sure how to gauge that compared to other people, but I'm just having so much fun talking to Chris Nilan, to Elvis Stoico, to Mano Rayom, for God's sake. I'm having a ball, having a blast. Of course, I do look forward to putting more time, investing more into it to make it a more commonly listened to, is that the word to say, podcast, and monetize it and get sponsors and so on. But I am just having the time of my life. It's just so much fun.
It's an industry that has just blown up, obviously, with the pandemic. It seems everybody's coming with a concept. I love your concept, obviously, having a perspective, worldwide perspective. It's not just the NHL, exactly what the Hockey News had asked me. Don't worry about the numbers. Don't look at how many people are watching live, because you know what? We do anywhere from 15 to 40 people live, and then at the end of it, there's 500 or 600 views, because it's 24 hours this world works. Not many people are up at 5:30 in the morning in Canada to watch us do what we do, and not many people are up around the world when we do our 4:00 show. We pick 4:00 show for our convenience because it's an easy time. We do much better at 7:00 at night, but then we're up against a bunch of competitions. So the numbers are not important. The only time numbers become important, obviously, Greg, is when you do want to go out and get sponsorship. That's the toughest part of this gig.
And I know that.
Yeah. But it's fun. It's fun watching what you do. I think it's a worldwide opportunity for us all to connect. Some of us are good, some of us are bad. But you know what? The most important thing is that we're actually, and I like this one, painting prospects from floor to ceiling. That's a pretty good one too. And of course, the reason why you chose pucking funny is because you couldn't use that one that started with F, because it would scare everybody. But here's a comment I want to make to you, Greg. I have had William Bill, Leaf prospect on my show last year.
Boo the Leafs. No.
Yeah. I want to ask you a question as we wrap up here. I'm going to have you back on because anybody that does a show out of a Zamboni has to come on again.
Oh, before you ask me that question, you heard the dog howl? There's a story about the dog. Well, there's lots of stories.
Okay, let's hear the dog.
And Sam, with that picture behind you, you might appreciate this. The dog's name is Crosby. The dog's name is Crosby. Do you know why?
No.
Because we live in Sydney, so he's Sydney's Crosby.
Oh my God.
What? I thought it was clever.
I'm sure my daughter's actually loving that right now. Anything to do with Crosby's great.
What about Gino? Does she like Gino?
Nothing wrong with Gino. That's my man. That's my man. The Italian side coming out, even though he's not Italian, but, Gino's.
Jenny Malkin, very Italian, yes.
Very Malkinino.
Listen, as we wrap this up, I can't thank you enough. I want to go to this. It's very important because I know you just don't cover NHL. You do cover the AIHL. Obviously, they're not playing. I'm going to have Dave Turek on next week. Ashley, I'd love to get you on the show to be fantastic. I'll get Stephen Ellis up this early, and we can have maybe a panel, and that would be a great show. Greg, having you on, we'll do a kind of a panel thing and talk about all the different leagues around the world. But this one's really interesting to me. Obviously, I'm sure you're made aware of the NWHL, Women's Hockey League, is National Women's Hockey League, is playing at Lake Placid this weekend. Your thoughts on that? There's a controversy, of course, with the pros. Not all the pro women have gone to participate in this. I guess it's 6 teams playing in Lake Placid. They've been in a bubble. Your thoughts? Have you heard anything about it? Have any of the women that you've had on the show? I know Sammy J, Joe Small will talk a little bit about it. Any thoughts on where you stand on the fact that women's hockey is very important, yet there's controversy? Pro players don't want to participate because the NHL is not funding it. I just learned about this and the politics. Are you concerned about that for women's hockey?
I'm rather familiar with the NWHL because, in fact, just last week or the week before, I had Carly Jackson, who's the goalie for the Buffalo Beauts, as well as Adam McDougall, who's on the Beauts, and they're one of the teams in the bubble. So I spoke with them. As far as the controversy, what I know is that the NWHL are a league and they're having their bubble, and the Professional Women's Hockey Players Association, I think it's called,
Yes.
which are more the professional players.
It's
Those that you might know.
Yeah, PWHPA.
That's the one. And that's the one that would involve people that are probably better known. Mary-Philip Poulin, Jenna Efford, Kendon Coyle of the States.
Yes.
So they're the higher caliber players. I think I can say it like that. Yeah. Now, my concern is, yes, that there's a divide there between 2 leagues for women playing hockey. There are enough women of professional hockey caliber to do at least 6, probably more, but at least 6, possibly up to 10 or 12 teams in one league if you're going to do one league. Obviously 6 because the NWHL is there. I think it's Sammy Jo, when I spoke with her, who said that ideally there could be one sort of super league of 6 teams, and with NHL backing, similar to the WNBA.
Yeah.
And perhaps you could have a sort of second tier league, an AHL comparable, with another 6 teams, and then players could go up and down. So you could have your 12 teams like that. I am concerned that of the divide, as Ashley is pointing there, only because there are tons of women of great caliber. It's a great sport. I love watching the women play hockey, like I love watching the men. It's not any different. And for some political reasons, or I'm not sure who's not. Aaron, you can go to bed.
You know what? We always say it's going to be an hour show, and it ends up being a marathon. But anyway, I'll tell you what, we're so excited to have you.
There's tons of female talent to do. I'd say 10 or 12 teams. Okay, perhaps the best way would be to have one sort of super league of 6 teams with an affiliate league of another 6 to 8 teams, and that way it's not one better league or lesser league or whatever. So the NHL would have to get involved, though.
Absolutely.
Until the NHL and the Gary Bettman line that I've heard, and I don't know if he's changed his tune or whatever, is something like, until they get along, we're not going to get involved, something like that.
That's right. That's crazy.
Gary, you got to take the bull by the horns. You got to take the bull by you're the big league.
Absolutely. And it's an important part of hockey. Women's hockey is entertaining. Obviously, at the Olympics, we see that it has a lot of growth, and I'm certainly hoping that we can make that happen. I'm currently scouting the AJHL. This is giving me a good, healthy break. All right, listen, we're going to let you go. You've been watching Gouche Live featuring Paul Rosen. Obviously, it's Aussie Style. We got Sam Trapolino stepping in for our good buddy Paul Rosen. A good interview, and I will line that up if you can't do it. Digit Murphy. That, if you've not had her on, she is incredible.
Patrick and Osgood. There you go.
There you go.
Look at Sam.
All right. Listen, you have a good night. I can't thank you enough, Greg. Pucking funny. Pucking funny.
Pucking funny. Listen, subscribe. Make sure Listen, good shows coming up. It's been an absolute pleasure. Truly appreciate you having me on. Thanks, Gouche.
No, it's our pleasure. Anybody that loves the Montreal Canadiens as much as you do, we got to give you a forum. Get it? Got to give you a forum.
Oh!
Dun-dun-dun.
Fucking hell.
It's amazing. Last word to you, Greg.
That was pretty good. All right. So the name is Greg Savoie. The podcast is Pucking Funny. You can find Pucking Funny Pod on Instagram. The full name is Gregoire Savoie on Facebook.
Apple
yes, the podcast itself on Apple, on Spotify, and all the platforms. And if you send me a message, you will get a reply. If anybody listening out there, you want to come on Pucking Funny, send me a message. I'll put you on. That easy.
You know why?
Nathan Walker.
Yeah, Nate, are you listening, Nate? Are you listening?
He's not up this early. Hey, listen, you know why? Because it's a fucking great experience.
It is.
It is.
You had to write that down.
It's been great. Thanks, Gouche.
Yeah, buddy.
Thanks, Greg. Thank you very much. Oh, look out. Aaron's up with it too.
Anytime Greg comes on, I hope he stays in the Zamboni. That is hilarious.
Aaron, where the puck are you?
Hey, listen, it's always great to talk to people that are so passionate about the game, obviously, that I love and played so long. I know you're a newbie to it, only a few years into it, but you're right into it now, eh? Look at the picture behind you.
I absolutely love it. And then what was great then was to actually know the Patrick Roy trade, to know that he went to the Avs, to know what happened with the Red Wings. So my knowledge is getting there. It's getting there.
It's unbelievable. It's better than mine because I still call him Patrick Roy.
Well, that was hard. Tux and I were trying to find this player, and it's like Patrick Roy, and we hear this "wah," so we had no idea that the two players were the same person.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. Hey, listen, next week, obviously, we're going to have a great show. We're going to talk. Hopefully, we have our good friend Aaron Kuzak back with us, back in the ranch, Gouche live, Aussie style. We're going to be talking. We're going to have a panel, and the panel is going to be talking about what we just obviously had with Professor Al Pierce. We're going to get some medical advice and experts on the panel. Of course, Scott Holler is going to be joining us here from Toronto, who's arguably one of the best in the industry when it comes to diagnosing and managing concussions. It's a big deal. We know it. And then, of course, to end the show today, we had a really pucking funny guy, Greg Savoie. Make sure you check out his podcast. I've been on it several times, listening to it. It's really good. He's knowledgeable, but yet he does bring humor to it, and that's so important.
Absolutely. There's enough seriousness in this world, and people like Greg, they're few and far between. Just a shame of his choice in teams.
Not a shame at all.
That's
That's one of the most historic franchise. That is, how many Stanley Cups have the Montreal Canadiens won?
Oh, I have no idea. That's like asking how many cups has the Hawthorn Football Club won?
3.
No, a bit more than that.
4.
Carlton's won 17, Essendon 16, but the Hawthorn's up there, so anyway.
Yes, I love to see that. I can't wait to see the video. Hey guys, listen, you've been listening to Gouche Live. Gouche Live, Aussie Style, brought to you by the good people at the Hockey News and, of course, Sports Illustrated. Do not miss next week. Obviously, we're going to dig deeper into the situation called CTE, chronic traumatic encephalopathy. Tough word to say when you've had a few coffees. Really important. Make sure you check it out. Sammy, always a pleasure. Thank you for being a part of it. And I look forward to, I'll bring the popcorn. Here we go.
Thanks, Coach.
Thank you, buddy. Thanks for waking up so early.
You mean you.
Let's play some hockey.